The first thing that one needs to do while setting up a factory is some sort of a project planning exercise or project management exercise, because you have to control the project of setting up your factory in a time bound manner. Cost shouldn't without over the costs going out of budget in terms of setting up the factory and all that, you have to manage the time and cost appropriately. So there is a complete subject called project management. There are softwares available, a software called PERT and CPM, critical path method, and program evaluation and reviewing techniques. There are Gantt charts, GA and TT charts, which help you in monitoring the progress of the project in terms of time. So you have to look at whether you can do some activities in parallel, or sometimes it has to be sequential. One thing follows the other. Sometimes you do parallel processing. And how do you do crashing? How do you compress the activity time so that you can control the project overall? So project management is one of the beginning points. And that doesn't mean that it can be done only when you are setting up the factory. This applies to any particular big project. So it's a one-off, unique, long, big activity which is a project. So there is a whole subject of project management devoted to this. You also have to look at the production process. Are you in for a continuous process industry? Like some chemical industries run 365 days a year generally. There is no break. It's 24/7. And sometimes there is a shutdown for a month or a few days for maintenance purposes. Otherwise, it's a continuous process. You just put something in and the process takes care. And there is SPC, statistical process control, and there is digital control of distributed control systems and SCADA system and all that, to instrumentation panels and all that. Like companies like Reliance, petrochemicals and all those would be following that. Are you in mass production where you produce identical items in a very large number? You produce millions of ballpoint pens or ball bearings or stuff like that. Are you in an engineering kind of a thing? Are you in a projects kind of a thing? You are building one equipment, or you are building some products. So are you in a batch sort of a thing where you produce in certain certain quantities or lots or batches? So then it is you have to determine your economic lot size or batch size, beyond which executing the order would not be economical. So these are some of the considerations that you will have to have. Even the planning would be of the plant would be like assembly line or a conveyor belt for a mass production item. There is just one production line, one assembly line, one conveyor belt. One guy just does one thing and moves on. The other guy does another thing. There is specialization, there is a division of labor, and each person just does one thing, and you produce in mass. Like Henry Ford did it in automobile manufacturing, initially pioneered the idea. Of course, the problem with mass production is too much of division of labor and specialization, which makes people bored. So some people have tried to come up with the idea of teams, where one team puts together one product. So all the members, the entire team is involved in the entire building of the product. That involves special scheduling and things of that sort. So that is of course quite difficult to do. So there are pros and cons. The pro is that a worker gets satisfaction to see that he is building the entire product, rather than just fitting one nut or tightening one nut or just putting in one part of it. In a job shop kind of a scenario, different parts go into different departments. Something goes for machining, some things are welded, some things go for heat treatment. Every product or every part doesn't have to go through every department. Some part goes through only one department, some parts go through several departments, and then finally everything comes together and is assembled. So that's a job shop kind of a thing. So there again, your planning and all that would be quite a different sort of a thing. Then of course comes the issue of the materials part of it. And when it comes to materials, we are looking at two things. One is the quantity part and one is the quality part. If you talk of the quantity part, we are talking of purchase, inventory and stores. There is something called MRP, Materials Requirement Planning. That is again a software. There is a supply chain management software. How do you integrate the whole supply chain? There is different suppliers, different job workers, different things are outsourced. You might procure something and process, you might get something outsourced. Some people will do job work for you. There is vendor management and all that. So the whole thing goes into the supply side of it. The focus here is on quantity. So how much to order? If there is too much when there are inventory at various levels, you have inventory at the raw material level, then once the material is passed in the factory, before it becomes finished product, we call it WIP or work in process inventory, and then the product it is ready before shipping, it sits in the warehouse, so we call it finished goods or FG inventory. So inventory is there at every stage, and the more inventory, the bad for you in terms of profitability and efficiency, because that means your money is blocked. There is inventory carrying cost. You are keeping inventory, so your money that you procured in buying that inventory and processing that inventory is stopped, because you make money only when you clear off your inventory and sell. So there is some sort of interest calculation. You need storage space, you need maintenance for that, and so there are overheads associated with storage and all that. So inventory carrying cost is a big issue. So if you have more inventory, then your money is getting blocked up, your cash flow is not good, your working capital is not good, situation is a bit uncomfortable. So less inventory, the better. But if you don't carry enough inventory, then maybe you can't produce in time, or you can't fulfill orders in time, and there is a problem of running stock out costs. You are unable to supply to your customers on time, and customers may be buying from somebody else, and other than that, and somebody wants your product and it is not available, he will not maybe wait for it, or will not wait for it. So it is a fine balance between how much inventory to carry and versus the risk of stock out. So there is a whole inventory management system. There is economic order quantity, which tells you about what is the best quantity to buy to try to minimize your inventory cost. But then when you try to minimize your inventory cost, you have the problem of stock out on the other end. So several models have been worked out trying to balance out these sorts of things. So inventory management, stores management, purchase, placing orders and all that, getting good vendors, vendor development is another issue. There is something called VAVE, vendor analysis, there is vendor assessment, there is value analysis and value engineering. When you try to tell your vendors that, look, I want this part from you, but you can change this part, because I don't want this part. I want you, if you modify the design, it will cost you less, and I don't want these extra things that you are giving me. Remove those features. That is value engineering. I don't need all those features. You just give me this basic part. It serves my purpose. So your cost goes down. So you can your profit you can keep the same. You sell me at a lower cost because your own cost has gone down. So then that is vendor value analysis to reduce my cost of procurement and purchase. Vendor value engineering, which takes place at the designing itself. Value analysis, when you already are procuring a part and then you go to the vendor and analyze it and say, look, maybe knock off a few of those features, bring down the cost. So those sorts of things are also there, which are part of purchase and materials. Vendor analysis, vendor management system, selecting good vendors, payment to those vendors, looking at data of those vendors, inspecting those vendors, can they give proper quality, and all those. So that is another aspect of it, one part of the supply side of materials management. We'll be talking about this in detail later on. Thank you.